Alrighty, I think we're live. I think we are going. Hey, welcome to the channel. Tonight we're going to be looking at just a couple of topics, I think, as we're going live on a Sunday with all of the wonderful weather that we have had going today, the storm of the century or something like that. But we did get some weather. Anyways, we're talking about um, should we cancel church due to weather and what that looks like, and then also looking at some information that came out from an affidavit from the federal government, I believe it was the FBI, on the church that was basically invaded last Sunday up there in Minneapolis. Been a little sick all week, so my throat's a little bit raspy still. So please bear with me. But we are ready to go. So we've had much of the country has had some pretty nasty weather today. It may or may not have been as bad depending on where you are at, but we got about 10.5 inches of snow over the last 24 hours. It started snowing about 7 o'clock last night, and it's still kind of flurrying a little bit here at 10 o'clock this evening. And so we had below zero wind chills, very close to zero temperatures. And so not a very nice day. I know other places had it much worse, and then there was also some places that the storm kind of petered out. So it brings up the question: what does it look like to cancel church? Is it permissible to cancel church services because of things such as bad weather? And so I'll just be upfront. We did cancel our church service today. It was, like I said, it was snowing, it was cold, and I just felt like it was the best thing to do. So some people really have a hard time with that, but I look at it as one, sometimes it's necessary. We should not desire to do it, but sometimes it is necessary. Now, what does necessary look like? I'm going to say it looks like probably something different for each and every church. What may be necessary for your church might not be what's necessary for mine, and vice versa. In fact, we probably close a little bit sooner uh, than I would prefer, but that is because if you followed our channel at all and listen to any of our broadcasts, our church is an elderly congregation in many ways, and kind of a rural church. I have people that drive 20, 30 miles. I personally drive 30 miles to church. And so I look at that and go, well, would I want the 80-some-year-old man in our church driving in this weather when if something were to happen to him and he goes off the road, he's putting himself and others in a dangerous situation. And so I want to try to help him not um, bother his conscience by trying to decide, is it wise for me to go to church or not? I'm going to help him as the shepherd, right? I care about his well-being, his spiritual well-being, but also his physical well-being. And so what I want to do is try to not hurt his conscience by having a service when we should probably be closed due to the condition of the roads, right? And so a couple of things that are just kind of standard rules that I have set that help me is if it's below zero out, if we have been asked by the local government to stay off the roads except for emergencies, I'm not going to impede them by creating more emergency situations out there. If our church was more of a younger congregation, we were closer to the facility where we meet, I would probably have less stringent requirements. We'd probably go at it for a little bit longer. There's definitely been times where we've canceled where I felt comfortable driving, but I did not feel comfortable asking someone else to drive. So I kind of asked myself, would I want my grandma out driving in this weather? Would I feel that what she was doing was safe? If the answer to that is no, then we go ahead and cancel the services. Again, it's not something we take lightly, but it is something that is sometimes necessary. And I often think of the Apostle Paul in all of his journeys and his travels. And one of the things I think of is some of his ships, especially when they were traveling there to Rome. They spent 14 days being driven by the storm. They weren't meeting with their local congregation. Why? Because of the weather and the things that were going on. It was something that was out of their control. And so there are sometimes when things are out of our control, we can't handle them. There's nothing we can do about it. It's unwise to put your people in dangerous situations. That's my 2 cents. Um, I don't care if you disagree with me or not. I think if you don't ever consider closing because of the weather, that you're kind of being a cold shepherd. You're not actually shepherding your people wisely. That's my 2 cents. So, moving on to the incident that happened last week, I guess. Man, it's been a crazy week. There's so much going on up in Minneapolis. I was thinking about talking about the ICE shooting of that guy up in Minneapolis yesterday, but I just don't think there's enough information out yet. Um, the whole situation's bad, but there's an affidavit that came out from some of the investigation already from what happened last week at the church, where those, not really protesters, I hate using the word protesters, they're thugs or hooligans at this point. They're not protesting, that basically invaded this church, right? And so there's some information that came out. It's an affidavit. It's about 19 pages. We found it here on scribd.com. And I wasn't going to pay to download it, so you can kind of see all the extra stuff that's on there. The first part of it is basically the investigators giving his background with the agency, who he is, and then he gives some facts basically about what happened, the timing, and all that. There's quite a bit that's redacted. A lot of what's redacted, just because I've seen video, is I'm pretty confident saying is about Don Lemon. Not all of it, but a fair amount of it. And I'll tell you, if some of the stuff that's redacted is about Don Lemon, that man should absolutely be arrested. He's probably not going to be. My gut, just from past history of things that we've seen, the odds of him being arrested are, I think, probably slim to none. But based upon reading this, I would say he absolutely deserves to be arrested. He was very much involved, very much a part of it, assuming that all of this blacked out stuff is, not all of it, I know it's not all, but assuming some of the stuff that's blacked out is Don Lemon. But a lot of that is blacked out is about this guy that was live streaming, and just some of the things that were said. It was obvious that who they're talking about. And so, like I said, it's about 19 pages. Most of it is him giving kind of the narrative or the background that's building up to it. These guys are, driving in a car. They're some of them are questioning, hey, can we be doing this? Should we be doing this? Are we going inside? Are we staying outside? What's going on, right? And so, so it looks like about 40 of them or so showed up at this church, and they end up going in, and they create an absolute disturbance. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here and look at some things. Okay, now this part I'm very comfortable saying is absolutely Don Lemon here at on page 12, where we have the video I think that we looked at last week, where Don Lemon is interviewing the pastor, and you can see the pastor just looks overwhelmed and like, what do I do? I mean, this is a new thing for many churches, being stormed like this. And Don Lemon's questioning him and saying, we have a First Amendment right to be here, which is false. And then he leans into the pastor, and then it's like, don't touch me. And the pastor ends up making a statement. He says, look, we're just trying to worship Jesus. The world needs Jesus. And what I want you to do is I want you to leave, because these people, you can't talk to them. They don't want to talk, and I'm asking you to leave. And from this affidavit that we read here, we find out that Don Lemon still stays within the building, trespassing for another 13 minutes after he was asked to leave. So the guy is, Lemon himself is very obviously trespassing at this point. He's not a journalist out there. Even, I'll say this, even if Don Lemon was actually a real journalist and that was the intent of what he was doing, once he was asked to leave this private property and he didn't, at this point he's definitely trespassing. Okay. And so some facts down here at page number 13, some facts obtained from either other video footage. The church had video footage and all these things. We're basically seeing that this guy Kelly is going around. I think this is the crazy guy with the beard. You may have seen some things from him. Basically yelling, hands up, don't shoot. And let me see here. There's also a video where we see a woman that is holding two toddlers in a very protective way. So you can see anxiety and fear on her face. You can see this guy, Kelly. He's moving around the auditorium in a very aggressive and confrontational manner, getting right in their face, and he's yelling at them. He's yelling at the people, asking them, why aren't you involved in the protests, and screaming at them. And then he's trying to get the agitators, these thugs, into doing different chants and all that kind of stuff, right? And so, uh, some of the video that was obtained from the church shows that the I don't want to say it's Don Lemon, but I wouldn't be surprised. Chanting with the agitators, punching his fist in the air. Okay. Um, Basically, they're intimidating, they're physically obstructing the freedom of movement within the building. Okay. So, let's see. Sorry, we're just kind of chatting along, or just kind of scanning through here. Basically, they were there for about 30 minutes, okay, interrupting this church service. And they're disrupting it. They were blocking movement of people within the facility. They were getting in their faces. They were yelling at them. They were trying to stop people from exiting, and they were giving them a hard time. One lady actually fell and broke her arm while she was trying to leave. The children, they said there was little children that were crying. There's women that were crying, and there was a lot of things that were going on. They were blocking basically the hallways. People were trying to get down to the church's nurseries to try to get to their kids. These people were blocking it, not allowing people to get through. There was one thing in particular I was trying to find here. It was a statement. They were blocking the aisle so that people couldn't get out and couldn't move. Here we go. Right here, victim five says that they were afraid that the agitators, the thugs, had guns because again they don't know what's going on. They just got this group of 50 wild hooligans coming in, yelling, screaming at them, creating all kinds of problems, and so people were afraid for their life, basically. And honestly, these agitators were lucky that no one shot at them. Here, basically said that. Members attempted to retrieve their children from the child care area located downstairs, but the agitators were blocking the stairs and the parents were unable to get to their children. I tell you right now, you get between me and my little kids. We're going to have a problem. Okay. Uh, Victim 4 recalled one agitator was threatening, aggressive, and intimidating toward parishioners. This agitator was screaming and getting in people's faces, to include women and young children, and basically was screaming in the faces of children, making them cry. Um, Down here it says this guy named Kelly was screaming Nazis in people's faces and confronting children, saying, "Do you know your parents are Nazis and they're going to burn in hell?" Now, I don't know. Actually, I do know what it is. Leftist agitators are godless, wicked people. Um, and so they have no respect for life, even though they use people's lives as a prop. But these people they don't respect life at all. Their belief system is more important than anybody else's life, and so they will come, they will mock, they will agitate, they will try to use fear to push their agenda, and eventually these leftists, we can see it all through history. They always eventually turn to violence because we have to force you, or if we cannot force you to conform to what we say is right, then we will just wipe you out. We'll get rid of you for the good of society, right? And so their God is their belief system, and everything else has to get out of the way. And that's what we're starting to see here, unfortunately, in this country. And I don't know what the answer is. In the long run, the answer is God, of course. But for right now, um, I don't think we can continue to allow this violence to escalate. They're smelling blood, and they think they've got a shot, so they're getting very, very bold. Uh, but I'm not sure what the right response is from the federal government to stop this stuff. But something's got to give. It's starting to get out of hand. But as far as churches go, yeah, I thought some more about it this week. I mean, at a minimum, you got to have somebody at the door or lock the door. If you don't want to, or you don't have the ability to have some sort of physical security, you need to at least lock your doors and control who has access to your facilities. I don't, and I hate to say that, but I think that we are in a place right now where that is something that is necessary. Again, going back to the idea that, do we close because of weather or not? Well, as the pastor, as the shepherd, right, I'm looking out for everybody that's there. Well, I need to look out for their personal safety as well, as I said last week on our live stream. And so, um, hopefully we don't see any more of these. But I think we are going to continue to see an uptick in violence toward churches of all kinds. And that's a sad thing to say. So be careful out there. I think you need to use some wisdom, use some discernment. Um, yeah, but things are crazy out there. We just need to pray for our nation. I was thinking a lot about this week that, we're not in a very good spot. And the only thing that's going to fix this ultimately is going to be Christ. Use the term revival, right? A reviving toward God, and that would be many of our churches in our country are very weak. Our church too. I mean, I think we're fairly strong scripturally and biblically, but we're not a strong physical church. It's um, I get, we're small. I just don't know how else to put it. And size, I get it, is not necessarily a sign of spirituality, but it's a growing, healthy church, I guess, is what America needs. And churches that have the capacity to be able to get out and participate in their community, that have the capacity to share the gospel. And so we definitely need people that will be willing to turn to Christ. And not only that, I think we need Christians that are revived internally, that take their Christianity seriously, that are a witness in their community, that are not afraid, that are bold. We need to be bold witnesses for Christ. And I think we've gotten very afraid to be bold in our witnessing, in standing up for truth. We've talked a lot, and I think it's very important over the last probably, 20, 30 years that you can have the right um, theology, but you can have the wrong attitude. And if you have the right theology and the wrong attitude, you're still wrong in the fact of how you're coming across, how you're treating people, how you're presenting things. But that doesn't mean we need to be weak. And I think we've gotten maybe a little bit too much to the point where we're weak. We're afraid to stand for truth. And truth is truth. Truth is never changing. And we need to be willing to be bold, have a backbone, stand for truth. And, that's what our country needs right now more than anything. So I hope you've been safe out there with the weather. Hopefully, I did see there's been some places that got a lot of ice. Looks like northern Mississippi got quite a bit of ice. We got some trees falling, things collapsing. Collapsing. Let me take a drink here. Sorry about my throat. So hopefully everyone's okay. I haven't heard anything about deaths or anything. I did see that we've had quite a few accidents in our state. Our state declared a state of emergency last night. I think it was last night or this morning. Just because the amount of snowfall it covered basically the entire state, and to the south of us got even more than we got. Um, but it's going to be a cold week, it looks like, for the next couple of days. So I think we're waking up to negative 14 or something like that tomorrow morning. So that's going to be wonderful. I think those are the two topics. Those are the two things I wanted to talk about. Whether or not we should ever close for weather, and and just talk about this church, this affidavit on this church thing that's over there. So, all right, I'm getting off of here. You guys take care. You have a good week. Stay safe out there. And if you need a personal revival, I'd encourage you, get in the word, pray, spend some time with the Lord, and ask him to give you boldness to stand firm for truth during these times. I don't think they're going to get better anytime soon. And I don't say that to be a negative or a Debbie Downer. It's just the reality of the times we live in. And so we need to be bold and firm. And I'm repeating myself. I understand that. But It's because it's important. Until next time.